Welcome back to the Nuggets of Gold podcast and YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the two quarterback system just as a whole. Now, obviously, there's been some rumors that the 49ers are going to run something like that with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. Up to this point, I've been a pretty big advocate that a two quarterback system is not really doing anything to help anyone. It just kind of makes the quarterback room feel like it's in shambles. But then I watched the last, those two drives of the preseason game. And Aiden, I know that you're not the biggest fan of the two quarterback system, but I think everyone can admit that looks pretty ridiculous. The entire Raiders linebacking core looked completely lost on every time when they would have a switch where guys just didn't know what to do. And the reason it really worked was because when they would go to Trey Lance and shotgun and then they'd have Jimmy and they'd have all these different looks, different quarterbacks, obviously they can do different things, but when they would do these adjustments, it wasn't about the passing game, like, oh, look at this explosive passing game. You got the secondary in shambles. No, it was the linebacking core because they're showing different looks, but they're also showing different quarterbacks, and Trey Lance is bringing that running ability. So when they were using him for those zone reads, you just could drive a truck through a lot of these holes because the linebackers were completely lost. They'd just seen Jim, and it was just like they were constantly in shambles. They were picking up, I felt like over 10 yards a carry when Lance was in there, and here you go, Mostert. And Mostert had what was it, over 50 yards on the first drive? It was ridiculous. So I think that we might see some of that early on in the 49ers season. I know you feel a little bit differently than me, Aiden. I don't think it's going to be the extent that we saw it in those first two drives. Like that's going to be every game. I don't think that's how it's going to be. But I think you're going to see every once in a while, oh, look, Trey Lance is in the game. And it might be like 2 or 3 drives throughout the game. But when they do that, I do think it can help a lot. Maybe they do it a lot more than I'm guessing. But another coach that did something similar was Sean Payton. And Sean Payton did with Taysom Hill. And I know a lot of people really don't like that he was doing that. They made the playoffs. And yes, they had Hall of Fame quarterback Drew Brees. But Drew Brees was a bad player last year. He could not throw the ball downfield, and he was hurt. There's reasons for it. He's also a lot older. But they used Taysom when Brees was in there, and they also used him obviously when Brees went down. But they were using Taysom a lot because it would just provide their offense with different looks, and it would help their offense a lot. And he was explosive in that role. I think that this year there was the quarterback battle with Jameis and him, and I always felt like Jameis should 100% win it. Even though Jameis won that, we all know that we're going to see Taysom Hill on the field. Like, that's a given. You're going to see Taysom Hill on the field. You're going to see him lined up at quarterback. You're going to see him lined up all over the field. So that is the difference when you look at the Niners situation and the Saints. The Saints are maybe not using it like a two quarterback, I guess. The Niners aren't either, but it's almost like using this guy as a gadget piece, and you're using him at quarterback for New Orleans, where for the 49ers, they're trying to slowly bring a guy into the league by just giving him some looks and giving him some opportunity, even if that's just a little bit of a few snaps every game. But it does help them. It does help his growth. He's at least getting playing time. So the big question for me to you, Aiden, is: are we going to see more two quarterback systems? Are they going to become more prevalent in this league? I think yes. I think that we could see a lot of younger quarterbacks do that. But what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think a lot of things need to happen for the two quarterback system to really take off, and a lot of things need to happen in a specific system for somebody to institute it. I think the guy coming in needs to be able to run. I think that is a important aspect and a reason why you would bring this guy in, because the defense looks at Trey Lance and they're like, this dude could pull it. And that's something completely different than you see with Jimmy. And we saw it against the Raiders. Linebackers had no idea what to do. They were staying in the box, letting Mostert get outside because they're afraid of Trey Lance running up the middle. Usually when you bring in a guy like that, he's coming in to run it, and we saw that with Taysom Hill. But this is the first time that I can think of that someone is using it as a developmental tool. And it's a really interesting way to think about it. This year, if Kyle kept 3 quarterbacks, I think it would be something that we saw a little bit more regularly, but it's something that I expect to see in the red zone, and in time, maybe a 3rd and 2, just to put another thing in the back of the defensive mind, and give them something extra to prepare for every week. It just adds more pressure on the defense, and it's similar to almost bringing in like a wildcat formation, but this dude can also throw. And honestly, maybe able to throw better than Jimmy, maybe able to throw it farther. I don't really know. We're not going to get into that right now, but I think it's a super interesting idea, and it's something that, like you mentioned, could shift the way that we develop quarterbacks going forward. Um, and I think Kyle is so excited to be able to mold and kind of act as a trendsetter for a potentially new system.
And that also could start coming along a little bit more too. Because, for instance, you see Trey Lance getting compared to Mac Jones and these other guys. The difference is Trey Lance is what, 21 years old? He's very young. I believe he's younger than I am. And I'm super young. So this dude is going to be playing NFL football. And you have a lot of the other rookies like Mac Jones, who's like 24, 25, like guys that have played football a lot longer, that have a lot more, experience at the position. This is also a guy that is a clear dual threat player. They can already utilize his running abilities now. And that's why I think it kind of works as a developmental tool. I don't know how many quarterbacks, like I think there's only a few guys that, and maybe it's going to be more and more guys like Trey Lance, where they're just like crazy athletes, don't have a ton of experience at the position, but you can see all the tools they can, and what they can become. And maybe those guys are using this 2-quarterback system as developmental tools. But it is interesting because that could definitely happen. Also, just because of how they showed it against the Raiders and stuff, Aaron Glenn, who is the Detroit Lions defensive coordinator, he has his work cut out for him week 1, because Kyle just made it so impossible to even project what they're going to do. Like you said, they can just throw it out on a 3rd and 2, and they could throw the ball, and they could stack the box, and they could just throw a jump ball. There's so many different variations of what they can do. Now, of course, another thing is like, well, if they see what down the road during the season, if they see what the Niners do with Trey Lance and what they do with Jimmy Garoppolo and how it looks differently, the defense is going to know what looks differently. But you're also going to put them in what a lot of people call panic mode for the linebackers, where they're doing, like, yes, they know their assignments and whatnot, but they're just trying to keep up and not get completely burned, and they're just playing off of instincts, and that's where you can get them really bad, because on one look, with one quarterback, you're doing certain things, trying to get them to, have certain, to show certain instincts. But then if you bring Trey Lance in, like you said, they're focused on Lance. Oh, is he going to go? Is he going to go? And they're one step behind Raheem Mostert. And if you're one step behind Raheem Mostert, you are toast. Like that. Like that's how it is. Is Mostert, an all-pro player? No, but Mostert is probably the fastest player on the field at the majority of the time he's in the game. He's that fast. So if you just miss that, the 49ers are utilizing Mostert and Trey Lance. Also, that's the guy I think you'll see a lot in there. When Mostert's going to get the ball, a lot of them are going to be those zone reads with Trey Lance because they're nasty. But I am really interested. I'm also very interested to see what the Saints do this year with Taysom. I think Jameis Winston is going to have a fantastic season there. Now I know that what's his name, Marquez Callaway and Traquan Smith are going to be those week 1 starters with Michael Thomas out. I still think it's fine. I still think they're going to find a way to move the ball. They're going to do it. But they are going to use Taysom Hill. We're probably going to see Taysom at tight end. We're going to see Taysom all over the field. But when the Niners use their quarterback system, it's going to look a lot different. So while these are a lot different, I do think it could potentially be a sign of things to come in the NFL. I know it's very different. You don't really see that in the NFL. I think this is the first time. Taysom was probably the first time I ever noticed like a true 2-quarterback system in the league. I don't remember that. Maybe when I was a lot younger, there was a couple examples of that, but it's pretty new. And the big thing for me, why I think it's going to keep, happen more and more, look at the 2 coaches that are doing it. Sean Payton and Kyle Shanahan. Those are 2 of the very best offensive coaches in the league. Sean Payton is going to go down. I think Kyle will as well, but Sean Payton is definitely going to go down as one of the greatest offensive minds ever. I think Kyle will as well. Now, it's pretty early in his head coaching career, but both these guys have, they've had success. They've done a lot of good things, and they're thought of geniuses at the position. So if they're going to rock with this, you might see other teams follow with this kind of path as well. But anything else you want to add, Aiden?
No, I think you hit it right on the head. This is something that I think is really exciting for the 49ers and for the league. I would say maybe don't prepare for Trey Lance to play half the game. It's not going to look exactly like it did versus the Raiders, but expect to see Trey Lance in scoring situations, down by the red zone, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. And I think it'll be really, really interesting to see what Kyle does. Gives him another chess piece to play. And he's already so creative with how he uses plays. So to give him somebody that can do all these different things, run, throw, I think it's just awesome, and I'm super excited to see how it instills itself in week 1 and beyond. Could be a way for Lance to get his feet wet before he takes over full time, or if it's something where it makes Jimmy make less dumb mistakes, maybe we keep it going throughout the season. I think Kyle is super duper flexible, and he's not sure exactly what's going to happen, but I'm super excited to see it succeed.
Yeah, me as well. So I think it's going to do it for this segment. But thank you all for listening, and let us know. Do you think the two quarterback system is just kind of a fluke, where you have two teams potentially doing it this year and it's going to die out, or do you think this is maybe the start of something where we're going to see younger quarterbacks do this a lot, and maybe just gadget guys that can play the position utilized a little bit more often than we have seen in the past? But that's going to do it. So thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you very soon.